You know what they say, no body, no crime. That statement isn't always true, but in general, someone can't be accused of a crime until there is proof. That does make sense, right? In the same way, a trial without witnesses may not be necessary either. In this case, though, everything is different from the norm, at least some of them. The police don't know what to do or where to look when a young mother literally vanishes. Did she get away? Was she somewhere she chose to be? Or did she have something happen? Well, that was until someone was questioned, and another accident that turned into a murder was found. Then everything fell into place. The Stacy Peterson case is full of mystery, strange events, and a lot of shocking turns of events that no one saw coming. Most of the time, I just start talking about the victim's life. But today, we're going to do something different. This is Drew Walter Peterson, the man who brought us all together. His parents are Betty Morphy and Donald Peterson. He was born in Bolingbrook, Illinois, on January 5, 1954. Drew was the oldest son. His sister and brother were younger. Drew's dad was in the Marines, and as you might guess, things were very strict in the Peterson home. Because one parent was in the military, everyone in the house had to follow his rules, like going to bed and getting up at the same time every day. There was cross-country running at Willowbrook High School, where Drew went to school. In high school, he met a woman named Carol Brown, and they got married in 1972. Drew and she were pretty much high school sweethearts. They even went to the same senior prom. Drew joined the Army right after high school and also went to college in 1974. Personally, I find this timeline a bit strange. However, I think he only served for about 2 years before coming home and starting college. However things turned out, Drew was discharged from the Army with honor. He then moved to Falls Church, Virginia, and started training to be a police officer. Not only that, but Drew and Carol got married in 1974. They were both 20 years old. The couple had 2 boys together, named Paul and Eric. In the meantime, Drew became a police officer in 1977 with the Bolingbrook Police Department. Drew was then put in charge of the Metropolitan Area Narcotics Squad the next year, in 1978. The following year, in 1979, he won the Police Officer of the Year award for his work. There was nothing bad about Drew's job in general. His personal life, on the other hand, is not so good. Drew and Carol were high school sweethearts, but their marriage didn't last long. After 6 years, they split up. Why? Carol found out that Drew was seeing someone else. We'll soon find out that Drew did this all the time. Drew married Vicki Connolly in 1982, 2 years after he lost his marriage to Carol. They were married for 10 years and ran a bar together in Romoville. Wait a minute, you might say. Drew used to work as a police officer. Why did he end up running a bar? In fact, Drew was demoted and fired from the narcotics squad for a short time because he was taking bribes and dealing with drugs that were his job. The promotion hit Drew hard at work, and it made him more angry and controlling when he wasn't with other people. Vicki saw this happen and had to deal with Drew's bad side by herself, which was sad. Drew even threatened Vicki while they were married and said he would make her death look like an accident. But she didn't say anything until after the case today. Also, the fact that Drew was cheating on Vicki with a woman named Kathleen Savio didn't help. She's going to be important later, but we'll talk more about her soon. Anyway, Vicki and Drew broke up in February 1992 after she learned of his affair. After 2 failed marriages and a promotion, Drew went after Kathleen, his mistress. On May 3, 1992, just a few months after his divorce from Vicki, Drew and Kathleen got married. Before she married Drew, Kathleen, who was better known as Kitty, worked as an accountant. In 1993 and 1994, she had two sons, Thomas and Christopher. After being married for about 11 years, they moved in together with their kids to 392 Pheasant Chase Drive in Bolingbrook. After some time, Kathleen and Drew also got divorced because, surprise, Drew cheated on her. Their divorce was finalized in October 2003, but they still hadn't agreed on how to split their money. As strange and scary as it was, police records showed that investigators were called to the Peterson home about 18 times between 2002 and 2004. Some of the calls were about problems in the home, and others were about Drew giving back the kids late, which was against the law because of the plans they made after they got divorced. Still, Drew was abusive, controlling, and manipulative toward Kathleen. He was also able to terrorize Kathleen while she was married to him because he was a police officer. Many wives whose husbands are police officers have to deal with this, which is a very sad fact. I think it's also true for many husbands whose wives are police officers. Drew was made to stay away from Kathleen, but that didn't stop him from making her life miserable. But after Kathleen and Drew's divorce, he married his next mistress, Stacey Ann Cales, who was 17 years old at the time. He was with her while he was still married to Kathleen. Drew was seeing a teen, even though he was too old to be her dad almost twice over. Even though he was a police officer, it was clear that he didn't care about the rules. Stacey was born in Downers Grove, Illinois, on January 20th, 1984, to Anthony and Christy. She had a very hard childhood. There were 6 of her, 5 sisters, and 1 brother. A sad thing happened before Stacey was born. Her sister Jessica died in a house fire that happened in the Cales family. Also, the fact that Stacey's parents were very unstable and would fight all the time after Jessica died didn't help. Other than that, Stacey saw one of her sisters, Lacey, die of SIDS. Following that, Stacey and the other kids were mostly left to handle their own affairs. Stacey's parents didn't care about them, and Christy, the mother and wife, stopped being in the picture at some point. After getting a divorce, Anthony, Stacey's dad, got full custody of all the kids, but he had a drinking problem and couldn't take good care of them. Then Stacey and her siblings learned that Christy, their mom, had disappeared and was never seen again. There was no progress in Stacey's case, but she and her siblings were sure that someone close to their mom had killed her. Stacey had a hard time in her life. Stacey must have been very traumatized and shaken up by having parents who didn't work well together and seeing death at such a young age. But she and her siblings still wished their lives were better. While she was at Joliet Junior College, Stacey worked part-time at a hotel and was studying to become a nurse. Yes, that's where she met Drew. For Stacey, Drew saved her. His age was a lot greater than hers, but he seemed stable, and she saw him as the safety and security she needed in her life. Anthony, Stacey's dad, knew Drew too. He let her date Drew, who was almost 30 years older than her, even though Stacey was only a teenager at the time. Though this is a terrible fact in and of itself, I think her dad thought that since she's dating a police officer, she'd be safe. Either that, or he didn't care. At this point, I don't know which one is more likely. Things got even worse when Stacey got pregnant with Drew's child. At that time, Drew and Kathleen were still married. The boy was named Anthony in the end. They were divorced from Kathleen a week later, though, and Stacey married Drew on October 18th, 2003. They lived with Drew's kids at 6 Pheasant Chase Court in Bolingbrook, which was less than a mile from Kathleen and Drew's house. For a while, things looked great. Drew got married to a beautiful new woman and had another child. Everything seemed great. Things were not what they seemed, though. Drew was dropping off Kathleen's kids for the day before the terrible event. They were going to spend the whole day with him. She didn't answer the door when they got to the house and knocked. Drew didn't give it much thought and took the kids back to Stacy's house. Drew asked Kathleen's best friend and neighbor Mary to check on her the next day, March 1st, when she still didn't answer the door. But when she did, she would find Kathleen, who was 40 years old, dead and cold in the bathroom. It was a terrible event that Mary will never forget. When the police were called, they strangely decided that she had drowned by accident, even though the bathtub was empty. It looks like they didn't even think about the bruises on her body and the serious wound on the back of her head. As if that wasn't strange enough, Drew sold Kathleen's house less than a month later and conveniently left out the fact that his ex-wife had died inside. In some states like Illinois, you don't have to say things like that, though. Drew had a story for when the police asked him about it, and it was his fourth wife, Stacy. Since he spent the whole day with her and the kids, he couldn't have killed Kathleen. So Kathleen was buried without any explanation, and her death was seen as a scary and strange event in the community. All of it was called some kind of strange accident, and that was pretty much the end of it. 3 years later, though, something strange would happen again, and this time Stacy would be on the scary radar. Stacy, who was 23 years old at the time, was almost done with her nursing degree in 2007. She was last seen in October, though. On October 29th, her sister Cassandra told the police that she was missing. Cassandra and Stacy were going to paint Cassandra's house together on October 28th. Stacy even went to see Cassandra the day before, on October 27th. She left around 11:30 p.m., but not before telling her family that she wanted to parry Drew. The police were called when Stacy was reported missing, and there were huge searches for her. She was happy to finally finish her nursing degree and had kids. She would never just up and leave her family or kids like that. That is, unless she was scared of someone or something. The whole neighborhood looked for Stacy. People went door to door to find out what was going on because missing posters were stuck all over the place. Drew wasn't on the same page as everyone else, though. He even said Stacy called him from Bolingbrook's airport and told him she was leaving him and the kids for someone else. An interesting fact is that Stacy's 2002 Pontiac Grand Am was found abandoned at the same airport. A bathing suit, some cash, and Stacy's passport were the only things that were missing from the house. Drew really thought that Stacy was out dancing with another man. During the search and investigation, he wasn't very helpful either. After getting a search warrant, the police took Drew's guns, computers, and phones, but they couldn't find anything. At this point, Kathleen's death also became more well-known. A lot of people found it strange that one of Drew's wives had died in a strange way, and that the other had now disappeared without a trace. People just didn't like it. Besides that, Drew didn't help the case either, because he was giving interviews like a movie star, saying he wasn't guilty and enjoying the attention. But let's be honest, if he didn't have anything to hide, which he supposedly didn't, then I don't think it's too strange for someone like Drew to be famous in their own town. Soon, Drew was seen as the main suspect in both Stacy's disappearance and Kathleen's death. To make this claim even stronger, Kathleen's body was dug up and another autopsy was done. If Kathleen got hurt this time, it wasn't because of an accident, and the results of 2 autopsies, one by the police and one by the family's investigation team, were crystal clear. Even though Kathleen drowned and died, it wasn't an accident. It was soon clear that there had been a fight before the scene was set up to look like an accident. At one point, the bathtub was full of water, but over time, it slowly leaked out. That's why it was dry and empty when Mary found Kathleen. To make things even worse, the coroner who first said Kathleen's death was an accident knew Drew and was able to convince the jury that Drew wasn't violent and wouldn't hurt anyone. It is said that this coroner purposely said Kathleen's death was an accident, even though he had proof to the contrary. It scares me to think about how powerful Drew was, even after he was fired from the police force. Not long after that, a pastor at Stacy's church also shared a scary truth. He told her that she had told him something before she went missing. The pastor said that Stacy told him that Drew had killed Kathleen and made it look like an accident. She also said that she was afraid for her life. Stacy also told the pastor that Drew came home in black clothes and a duffel bag full of women's clothes the night before Kathleen was found. He then threw the clothes in the washing machine. After that, he looked at Stacy and told her to tell the police exactly what he had told her. This made the case stronger and showed that Drew had a reason for leaving Stacy out of the picture. Cassandra also told the truth. Stacy wasn't happy in her marriage to Drew, and she wanted a divorce, but Drew wouldn't let her. Cassandra also said that Stacy had made it clear that Drew would be responsible for anything that happened to her. She was no longer there. Another person came forward with some scary information. It was Thomas Morphy, Drew's stepbrother. In fact, he was in the hospital because he had tried to kill himself. Why? Because he was sure he had helped Drew get rid of Stacy's body. Things quickly became very intense. At that time, Drew called Thomas and asked him to help him move a big blue oil barrel into the car. That's when Stacy went missing. It felt warm to the touch, but Thomas didn't know what was inside it. Some neighbors also said they saw Drew drag a big barrel out of the house and into his car around 10 p.m. after Stacy had gone missing. The whole thing was caught on CCTV. Investigators were building a case against Drew while he was out there quitting his job and talking to radio, TV, and news stations. Drew, the former police officer who thought he couldn't be caught, was actually always on the police's radar. After going through multiple witness statements, new autopsy reports, and Drew's shady history with controlling and manipulating women, the detectives were finally able to arrest him, which they did. 5 years after Kathleen's death, on May 7, 2009, 55-year-old Drew Peterson was finally charged with her murder. But there was something wrong. Drew didn't have any proof from Stacy or Kathleen, and everything the state knew about him came from rumors. This is what caused Drew's law to be passed in Illinois. This law said that statements made by people who weren't present in court can be used against the defendant if the defendant killed the witness. The statements were true, and it would be best for justice to accept them. So, 3 years after he was arrested, in 2012, the trial for killing Kathleen began. That was the plan of the prosecution. State Attorney James Glasgow was in charge of the prosecution. They didn't know if this law would work, but they were going to try anyway. A lot of people spoke for the prosecution, and some of them talked about Stacy. On the other hand, the defense was adamant that Drew had nothing to do with his wife's death or disappearance. Nothing, not DNA evidence, not physical evidence, showed that Drew had anything to do with Kathleen's death. The verdict was almost here, and everyone was on edge. Drew was thought to have been involved with Kathleen's death, but he got away with it for years. Now, everyone in the community was scared that it would happen again. The jury deliberated after the trial was over, and the verdict was known. On September 6, 2012, Drew was found guilty of killing Kathleen. He was given a 38-year prison sentence and was first locked up at Menard Correctional Center and then at Federal Correctional Institution, Terre Haute. Someone else in the prison attacked him because they planned to rob him and sell his things online. I have no idea how this would have turned out. But that's not the point. Although it wasn't instant karma, Drew was taken down a few notches by it anyway. Drew tried to overturn his conviction many times, but the Illinois Supreme Court always upheld the conviction. You might have thought that was the end, but Drew, being Drew, couldn't control his anger even while he was locked up. 3 years into Drew's sentence, another prisoner told on him and made him an offer. Drew wanted James Glasgow, the prosecutor in his murder case, to die. If this doesn't pretty much prove that he is guilty of the disappearance of his ex-wife, I don't know what will. This person is really having a terrible time. The prisoner then went straight to the prosecutors and told them all about Drew's horrible plans. He even wore a wire and recorded Drew telling the truth. It was charged against Drew to ask for murder and to ask for murder for hire. In May 2016, he was found guilty and given an extra 40 years in prison. He is currently locked up at the Indiana State Prison in Michigan City, Indiana. His prison ID number is 279193. Drew is still adamant that he is innocent, and he has given several interviews while in prison. I won't go into too much detail, though. I will tell you that Drew got a tax-free pension of $79,000 a year when he retired as a sergeant in 2007. Luckily, Drew lost it after being found guilty of murder for hire in 2016, so he won't be getting free money while he's in jail. Kathleen got what she deserved, but keep in mind that Drew was only found guilty of killing Kathleen and not Stacy. This is what makes it so sad. There is no one who knows where Stacy is, what happened to her, or where that strange barrel is. Joel Brodsky, Drew's former lawyer, said on 48 Hours that whatever happened to Stacy will be made public after Drew dies. During Stacy's disappearance and Kathleen's latest investigation, Brodsky was more like Drew's publicist than a lawyer. Even though he didn't say anything else, it made everyone else feel bad. Joel also came forward in May 2022, saying that he needed to share information about Drew that was secret because it was attorney-client privilege. When she heard this, Stacy's sister Cassandra had a strange range of feelings. She thinks that this information could help solve Stacy's cold case, no matter what. But Joel is still not allowed to say anything private about Drew or anything related to him. People also wonder if Joel really knows anything about him, or if he is just trying to gain power. Cassandra is still hopeful that the information will help solve the mystery of her sister's disappearance and maybe even help her find her and say goodbye in peace. But while we're talking about finding Stacy, Cassandra has been working hard to find her sister since she went missing. Not anyone else has been looking for Stacy since 2007, and she has used a lot of different tools to try to find her and bring her back home. We are looking for her sister on Facebook, and she has also set up a GoFundMe to help get Stacy's body back. Late last month, in April 2024, Cassandra thinks she found Stacy's body in an Illinois canal. The team led by Cassandra used sonar to find a body in a canal that they had narrowed down by talking to many witnesses. Since 2009, Cassandra has been keeping an eye on this strange body. Not long ago, a video was posted on Stacy's Facebook page showing that a ROV found pictures of her body on the riverbed. A skull, rib cage, and lower leg bones can be seen after the image has been changed and cleared. If you remember back to 2008, Cassandra told the police about this discovery, but they didn't do anything to get the bodies back. Because of this, Cassandra had no choice but to keep working to find better ways to get the bodies out of the water. She rented good gear from Alaska and even went back to the investigators. This time, the police did check the area, but all they found was a rock, and the rest of the area had already been cleaned up. Cassandra was sure that the investigators wouldn't do anything about what she had found after reading this. This is probably because they are all friends with Drew. After a while, she decided to start a GoFundMe page to help raise money for better equipment and for divers to go into the canal and get whatever the ROV picked up. Adventures with Purpose would be a great group to take on this case. I might even email them about it to see if they're interested, and you could do the same if you want to. It is always worth a shot. It's been 17 years since Stacy went missing. Drew should be held responsible, even though he is in prison, if he hurt Stacy and caused her death. But Drew can't be tried for what he did to Stacy because there is no body and no solid evidence. This makes everyone sad, especially Cassandra, Stacy's sister. Cassandra is still trying to find the right people to help her find and get back what she thinks are her sister's bones. She only wants to get these bodies out and test them because she doesn't want Stacy to be in this situation if it is her sister. She wants to bury her sister and have a place to talk to her and remember her properly. The bodies can be tested once they are found, but until then, no one knows whose bodies are underwater. It was hard to deal with this case. It's crazy to think that a police officer would go to such lengths to abuse the power and authority that his investigator's badge gives him. We can only pray and hope that Cassandra finds Stacy, because she too deserves to be able to move on with her life. It's been 17 years too long, and she needs to stop being hurt. Thanks for watching this deep dive into another true crime case. If you're drawn to the darker side of reality, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And as always, stay safe and question everything.